what was reported on Al Mayadeen, which is reporting on the from an Iranian source, that it says reported that the United States has made a concession to Iran regarding the closure of the southern route in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran rejected the latest, then it reports that Iran rejected the latest proposal, insisting that the Strait of Hormuz will not be reopened until the war has ended. This is what is your understanding of the ongoing messages, maybe back and forth between the two sides?
They're still talking past each other. So let me just let me refresh marinetraffic.com, see what's going on there. Yep. There's I count one, two ships, maybe three ships headed out of the Strait of Hormuz. I see one, two going in. That's on marinetraffic.com. I do the same at Vessel Finder. It's always, let's see here. Yeah, again, they've got a few ships showing up. Some have the AIS on, but they're not really being fully identified. You got more going in. But so, look, getting normal traffic restored to the Strait of Hormuz is going to be essential to getting the global economy back running somewhat normally. But even if the United States and Iran reach an agreement today or tomorrow, that it is not like flipping a light switch where the lights suddenly come on. It's going to take some time to, number one, assess the damage, how much damage has been done to the oil terminals in Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Oman, or not Oman, United Arab Emirates. How much damage has been done to the LNG terminal in Qatar at Ras Laffan? That supposedly is pretty severe, and that can't be easily replaced for another maybe 2 to 3 years. What about the production of urea and sulfur? So those are, again, those are byproducts of the high sulfur content oil. So it is, this getting that restored and operating again is going to be critical. And that I think that's one of the elements that's pressing on Donald Trump in the background, because we keep seeing this market manipulation. Quite predictable. What happened today? Stock market goes up, oil prices come down. Not a damn thing has changed. Not a damn thing. The supply of oil is not more plentiful all of a sudden. In fact, the shortage that's from the lack of this high sulfur oil that comes out of the Persian Gulf that has been used to produce diesel and aviation fuel, that shortage persists. It's getting worse, not better. So these market manipulations are just completely out of sync with reality. So I think that's one factor weighing behind the scenes, driving Trump to try to seek an off ramp. The other reality, they keep trying to deny it, is the severe shortage of the precision guided missiles, both for air defense and for offensive operations, that the U.S. has limited supply. And they may say, let's go with the CSIS assessment from about 2 weeks ago, that the United States has 2,000 Tomahawks left. People say, well, that's quite a few. Not really, because that's 2,000 Tomahawks throughout the entire Department of Defense. And if you go to Pacific Command or European Command, they're supposed to have a quantity of Tomahawks for their own military operations and planning. So just, divide 2,000 by 3. All of a sudden, you're at 750 tomahawks per unit. And well, that sounds like a lot until you realize that CENTCOM, during the first 4 weeks of the attacks in Iran, used 850. So let's just say that they decide to get back into another full-scale operation against Iran. They would completely exhaust their supply of Tomahawk missiles in 3 weeks. So this is, the United States is having to deal with some actual logistic realities that can't be just wished away.
We know that Iran is in the process of, making some sort of agreement with Omani government, and it was reported by Iranian Foreign Ministry. And when the report that I've just mentioned says that the United States has made a concession to Iran regarding the closure of the southern route of the Strait of Hormuz, what does that mean to you? Because today we had another Iranian attack on a vessel in the Strait of Hormuz just hours ago.
Yeah, no, I have no idea what it means. Does it mean that the Strait of Hormuz is now open for regular business? Absolutely not. So, we're going to continue, I think, to get these reports that, the United States is close to an agreement. No, they're not close to an agreement. It's going back and forth. The reality is Iran holds the cards. And Iran is in a very, very strong position right now to dictate the end to this war. And it remains to be seen whether, at some point the United States is going to have to cave because it'd be one thing if you say, okay, yeah, we do have a military solution. Well, we don't have a military solution, or at least one that can be paid for at a cost the United States is willing to pay. It would be extremely costly, both in loss of ships, loss of aircraft, and loss of personnel. And then, as we discussed yesterday, I believe, briefly with you, I got a correction from the angry mother. So, I talked about the food shortage of facing the sailors and Marines on board these ships. So I've now got the facts correct. The one mother that wrote me, her son is a sailor on board the USS Tripoli. And she said that even some of the meat that was being brought on board was labeled not fit for human consumption.
Wow.
And judging by what I saw on the pictures, I couldn't argue that at all. It looked nasty. Good God. So, when you got a bunch of young soldiers, sailors, Marines, they want to eat. And what's been a common theme is that people have been losing a lot of weight because they're not getting fed properly. And yeah, if you got some fat bastards that, manage to get into the service, this is okay. They're being forced to lose weight against their will. But for others who were in shape, this ends up, you're not just losing fat, you're losing muscle. So to continue to keep these troops, these military forces forward deployed, ready for conflict, but they're not being properly fed. There's a complete breakdown in the U.S. logistics and supply of these troops. That's going to affect morale. It's going to affect readiness. So it is, and they're covering up. Hegseth is covering up the problem, and you can pretend it's not there, but that doesn't make it go away.
It seems to me that Pete Hegseth and his people, they couldn't convince the American forces that this is their war. This is the war that they have to fight, they have to win. And psychologically, I'm talking about. Because you see multiple times Pete Hegseth trying to convince them, you have to be prepared. We are going and we are going to crush them. This is the final goal for us. This is going to be, put us in a better. But you don't see that coming from the American forces. Gerald Ford, for example, how many times we've seen problems somehow breaking out of that aircraft carrier. This is
Yeah.
something, comes to the cycle, the way that they have not been able to convince the forces that this is their war, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is. We don't have a clear objective, and I'll boil this down. I make it real simple from the standpoint as a firearms instructor. When you teach people how to use a pistol to defend themselves, it's counterintuitive, because on the one hand, you're teaching them to be prepared to shoot and kill somebody, but on the other hand, the bottom line lesson is that is the absolute last thing you ever want to do, to put yourself in a position where you have to kill somebody. You don't want to have to do that. You want to avoid that. And so here we are with the United States with this military force. What are we wanting to accomplish? Well, if we said we want to degrade Iran's military capabilities, the problem is their military capabilities are largely buried below ground in structures that are designed to survive a nuclear strike. So we really can't destroy those. If we try to destroy above ground, power centers that deliver power to civilian areas and water, et cetera, Iran has vowed, and it's got the ability to do so, to destroy comparable structures throughout the Gulf, among the Gulf Arabs. And if those Gulf Arabs are not in the same kind of position that Iran is, Iran's not dependent upon desalinization plants. Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, they are. You take down their power systems, you take down their refineries, you take down their oil terminals. They're then devastated. They can't survive economically without those. So, the United States had initially, promised these countries, hey, you side with us, we got your back, we'll protect you. Turns out we can't protect them. And these countries are now starting to look around going, I'm not sure this is such a great relationship to be in. I mean, being in this relationship with the United States is, frankly, problematic.
Here is a report on CNN, Larry. It mentions that.
Yes, one of my friends, retired Army intelligence officer, sent that to me this morning. He was going to try to verify whether or not that was correct, because he was saying, "Good Lord, this is ridiculous."
The request is from a senior officer at the U.S. military command carrying out President Donald Trump's war with Iran. He says that came in. It was an email that says we need ideas from the people, from the forces, and we are looking for a new, creative, unconventional ways to pressure and punish Iran. And they're asking, when they look, I don't know how can they believe in this leadership of the military when they see this sort of, requests from.
Well, this reportedly came out of what's called the C2 or the J2, depends on the lash up, but that's the number 2 refers to intelligence. So it could have been head of the intelligence section for CENTCOM, Central Command. But if that is true, hey, we like any ideas, anything else we can do to try
Command. Larry, you're right. It's Central Command.
Of course I'm right. Jiminy Christmas. You think I don't know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I mean, it is Central Command. So that's up at MacDill Air Force Base. And, the entire section, the intel office, they've got, I think it's a colonel that's in charge of the J2. Could be a 1-star, but their job is to prepare the best intelligence, and out of the intelligence, be able to identify what are the weaknesses and vulnerabilities of Iran. And this message, if true, highlights they don't have a damn clue. They're grasping at straws now.
I think the critical question right now would be looking at this article. What does the U.S. Central Command's unusual, sort of attitude in this email that they have just released? CNN released that. Is what does that mean? What does that reveal about the current state of military planning? Does it signal lack of viable options, or a genuine effort to foster innovation for all ranks? How it's
Yeah,
so
I mean, it's down, as my friend said, this is downright pathetic. This is, if when you start a war, you should have a good, clear intelligence picture of what are we up against, what are the threats, what are the, how can Iran respond, answer a lot of questions. And in this case, they apparently didn't have those answers, and now they're desperately trying to figure out what can we do. How do we put pressure on Iran? And I come back to the fact that the decisions Iran made 23 years ago, so that's almost a quarter of a century. They looked at what the United States was doing during its invasion of Iraq and its attack on Iraq. They realized, we can't keep our forces above ground. They are then vulnerable to attack. We got to move them underground. And that's when they began this massive effort to create all these underground cities, underground storage areas, underground factories. They can even, I'm not sure that prior to the start of this war, if the intelligence section of Central Command actually understood that Iran would be able to launch its missiles from underground. In fact, they didn't have to take out a mobile launcher that would be driving around. They were actually able to launch from underground. I know in the early days, after, in the first 2 weeks following the attack on February 28th, the Central Command was very confident that it was destroying all of Iran's launchers. I think it was only later they realized or came to understand that those what they were destroying were dummies. They weren't real launchers. They were decoys, and the decoys were intended to suck up U.S. weapon, force the United States to fire at it, and then we're blowing up something that's really meaningless. Meanwhile, the actual capability was maintained underground. So, this is anything the United States does to stop, bomb targets, launchers, et cetera, in Iran. The Iranians have shown that they recover from that very quickly and can continue to fire. And and now the United States doesn't have the defensive air defense systems in place that can defeat those.
Yeah. It says that the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency assessed that the current bombing is unlikely to shift Iran's negotiating position. And this is the assessment on their part. That's why they're asking for new and innovative ideas about the continuation of the war. I'm not sure about the continuation, if they have a viable choice with the continuation of the war, Larry. And with the case of the Strait of Hormuz, it seems that the Trump administration is somehow getting to the point that there is no military solution for the Strait, which is the core right now for the conflict.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
go ahead.
What else can be the solution for them, in your opinion? And which is not, I would say they have tried everything. What else can they do?
I don't know. I mean, what would you consider to be a solution?
My solution is not going to be popular for Donald Trump.
No, walk away. Walk away.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not like you can sit there and say that there's a military solution. I know a lot of Americans don't like to hear that, and they'll say, "Oh, there must be something we can still do." Let's try to drive a naval force into the Strait of Hormuz, uh, use the offensive capabilities of destroyers to try to take out land-based targets, launchers on the Iranian side. But then those ships are vulnerable to strikes from torpedoes, underwater drones, surface level drones, aerial drones, and short range ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. So those ships would be they'd take damage, and invariably they'd suffer casualties. So that's not a solution. At this point, it'd be one thing if you could make the case that the United States simply has to try X, Y, and Z in order to get Iran to comply. Iran's not going to comply. Okay? So Iran is in a strong position. And yeah, it's got economic problems. Yeah, it has some shortages, et cetera. But I would argue Iran's actually in a stronger position now than it was a year ago. And on top of it, it is proven that it can withstand the full might of the United States.